Hey guys, I'm Mary.
And I'm Justin.
And today we're going to be talking about variable scope.
So the first type of variable we're going to talk about today are global variables. Global variables are basically variables that appear at the top of your program before you write anything else, like this variable x here. And here we can see the variable declaration and assignment, let x be a number that equals 3. We can access this variable x anywhere in the program. And for example, we have a main function that we write right here. And in here, if we call print x, it'll print out 3 to the console.
The cool thing about global variables is even if we don't give it a value out here, we just declare it, we can say x equals 3 right here and assign it a value within curly braces, and it will still be able to print it because we declared our variable outside of any curly braces. So that leads us into our next topic, local variables.
A local variable is a variable that's declared inside a set of curly braces, like this variable that Mary is declaring here.
So because we've declared it within these curly braces, I can print x in here. If I were to try and print x outside of these curly braces, we would have an issue. We would end up with a red underline underneath our code that says that it can't find x. That's because this x lives within these two curly braces right here. So a variable is really only good in its innermost curly braces. So here we declare our variable x. X can only live within these curly braces. So if I were to say print x out here, again we would end up with that red underline saying that we can't access it. If I were to do print I, because I lives within the curly braces of the entire for loop, that would work. By the same reasoning, I can't do print I out here, outside of the for loop. We would end up with that red underline.
Yeah, and that's because whenever we call a for loop, basically we're declaring a local variable within this signature of the for loop. And so that local variable is only good within the body of that for loop, which for this for loop takes place from here all the way down to here. While loops work a little bit differently from for loops because we actually declare the counter variable outside of the loop. Here we have the declaration of the counter variable, let I be a number that starts off being equal to 0. And so the same rules apply as the for loop in the sense that we can still access this I inside of our loop because I is within the scope of the loop. It's beyond the scope of the loop, which is limited to here. And so we can do our general functions of printing I and incrementing I. Additionally, and this is something that's different from the for loop, outside of the while loop, we're able to print the value of I because the scope of I goes beyond this while loop and it has its scope of its own. So the same rules that apply to variable scope with for loops and while loops pretty much apply to function parameters. So here we have a simple function that takes in a number as an argument and returns that number doubled. So we take in a number labeled x as a parameter and we return x times 2. This x is going to be valid within the scope of this function only. So that's within the curly braces going from here to here. If we wanted to print out what the value of x was, we could do it as long as we did it inside the scope of the function. But if we did it down here after the curly braces, it would not.
So after we've declared our function, we can use it down here. So I've declared a variable called y and set it equal to 4. So here we're printing out what is being returned by our doubler function and inputting our variable here. Anywhere we see the letter y, we can replace with the number 4. So here, we can put the number 4. And then when we go into our function, we're saying this will be 4, and this will be 4, right? So this is some basic code tracing. Well, this result will be 8, right? So what if I try to do print x out here? Because that's what our parameter was, right? Well, this is going to give us that red underline once again because x only lives within these two curly braces. Out here, the program has literally no idea what you're talking about. So here, if we printed y, it would print out 4 because our y variable hasn't changed. But here, we can print doubler of y because we're passing that y variable to the function so the function can use it within here, and then that will print out 8.
And if we wanted to store the doubled value of 4 in the y variable, we would simply say y equals doubler of y.
So another place that variable scope really comes into play is with classes, right? So within a class, we have several properties that we can access, right? So here I've declared this new variable called myCar, and it's going to be a new vehicle, which means that it's going to be initialized with these properties here. It's going to have 4 wheels and its color is going to be red. So if I were to say print color, the computer is going to give us an error, right? And a little red underline because it doesn't know what color is. It's kind of like, it doesn't know what color is. So to be able to print out my car's color, we're going to have to refer to it by name, right? So we're going to ask for specifically my car's color property. So this is kind of like when you address someone by name, right? I can't just say like to a group of people, what's your hair color? They're going to say, which one? So if I were to be asking someone in particular, I'd say, Justin, what's your hair color? And he would return to me,
black.
There you go. So let's say instead of my car, let's say I popped a tire or something. So we're going to have to reassign a variable. How do we do that, Justin?
Well, in order to do that, we would first have to access the wheels variable within myCar. And we do this by saying mycar.wheels. And after that, and after we do mycar.wheels, we would just assign it a number like we would with any other variable. So we would set mycar.wheels to 3. And then what that does is it ends up changing this property within where the vehicle is existing in memory.
Yeah, so just like we've been talking throughout this video, we've mostly been using the example of print, but it's the same idea with assigning variables. We can only assign this variable because we can access it, right? So just like before, if we had said wheels equals 3, we wouldn't be able to print that out. But in here, if we were to do wheels equals 2 or something like that, we could still assign that variable because it's within the class, because this wheels lives within these 2 curly braces.